Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. Well, I discovered earlier today that my female Suriname Redtail was giving birth, and now I'm going to go check out the babies. And this is a really exciting litter. This is actually the sire. This is a 2014 holdback, who was the nicest animal from my first Redtail litter back in 2014. He actually had his first litter last year in 2020, and this will be a second litter. So amazing looking animal, real happy to have some more of his babies on the ground. The mother, who we'll see in a minute, is a female that I acquired from my buddy Matt Blackburn over at World Class Boas. She was born back in 2014, and I got her as a baby, and I've been growing her up all these years, so excited that she has her first litter on the ground. So now let's go take a look, check out the babies, and see what we have. Okay, so the first thing that tipped me off that she had a litter was the condensation on the front of the cage. You often see this on the glass of your cage when the female is giving birth, just from all the fluids that have been expelled. And then there's also this really faint smell of baby boa goo. And you know, once you have a few litters, you can know what that smells like, and you'll be able to recognize that smell. It's really, really faint, so if you don't have a really good nose, you probably won't smell it, but just a very faint odor. And then the giveaway, of course, are the babies in the cage. And the first sign that's not really that good is I see a couple that are not moving on their backs. They're obviously stillborns. I see a couple that are moving or in the right position. So hopefully those guys are still alive and kicking. So actually I'm going to take the female out first. I don't want to get bitten. I have a tub of lukewarm water to give her a soak, clean her up a bit. So I'll give her a soak and then I'll take the babies out. Okay, so I've taken the female out and I removed all the cage furniture. You can see all that goo in there, and you can see the babies. And not a huge litter, but they do look quite breathtaking. Let's first look at these. Unfortunately, there's two that didn't make it. These guys are stillborns. Not exactly sure what happens with these stillborns. You know, you see them fairly often in litters of boas, not every litter, but maybe every other litter. Usually, you know, they look fully formed. So this guy looks fully formed. You know, I often speculate what happened if he somehow died during birth. The birth didn't go right, and he was completely alive until he was born, and there was just something to do with how he was positioned inside the mother. Here's another one. Unfortunately, this is also a very fully formed one. You know, apologies for if you're squeamish. Looks like he's got some material in his mouth. Almost looks like some piece of a slug or undeveloped egg or something, but actually there's no slug, so I'm not quite sure what that is. Haven't seen that previously. I'll have to take some pictures of that. So it's always tough to have these stillborn animals, but it's unfortunately something you have to be prepared for if you're ever breeding boas, or pretty much any other animal for that matter. Now let's have a look at the live ones. It looks like there's 6 of them. They all look pretty nicely sized. Not quite as big as the babies I had about 2 months ago, but bigger than my litter last year. And you'll find that the size of the babies does vary. This guy is still has some amniotic sac and a little bit of yolk. I don't see a lot of yolk. Some of them look a little bit of what's called the yolk belly. They have this kind of enlarged belly, and that's nothing to be too worried about. They will absorb over the next few days. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the babies, put them in a separate container, and then thoroughly clean out the enclosure while the mother continues to soak. Here's a look at the babies. I went ahead and put them on paper towels in a 14-gallon Sterilite tub, and they're just going to stay in here for the first week or so until they have their first shed. I'm going to put some more paper towels rolled up for hiding places and give them a good misting, but you can see that some of them still have the umbilicus attached, that red material, and then you can see some amniotic sac right there. Usually you want to try to remove as much of the material as you can if you're moving them. You don't want to disturb the umbilicus. Typically it will fall off in about a day or two. Sometimes it will fall off prematurely and you might get some blood, which is usually not a big deal, but it just gets kind of messy, and I've heard it can, do some negative impact on the baby. So I always want to scoop them up gently, and remove as much of the material as you can. And so I'm going to go ahead and move these guys to my upstairs snake room, just put them on a heat mat that's set to 90 degrees and check in on them maybe a little bit later tonight. Meanwhile, I'll go and get the mother boa set up in her clean cage. Okay, so I cleaned the cage so thoroughly, got rid of all that baby scent, and I soaked the female for about 45 minutes or so just to get her nice and clean, and now she's back in the cage, and she's definitely looking deflated. She, you know, isn't a huge animal and put a lot of effort and mass into those babies, so she'll definitely be hungry, you know, to put the weight back on. And I'll go ahead and feed her tomorrow, probably a medium rat. She normally gets a large, but I want to give her a slightly smaller than normal meal, and then she'll have I'll probably feed every 10 days or so for the next 2 months, just to get her some weight back on her. And then she'll of course recover for next year before, if things go as planned, she can breed again in 2023. So that's where she's doing, and that's my Suriname female first litter. It's been a few hours and I've come to check on the babies and change the paper towels. What happens is that all the afterbirth and goo that remains kind of starts to smell, starts to decompose, so it's important to change the paper towels, every few hours or so. But the babies look real nice, some real nice bold patterns, bright colors, and I can't wait to see what they'll look like after they shed. Just some real nice examples of Suriname true red tails. So I'm going to change the paper towels. So I went ahead and changed the paper towels. You can see a lot of them still have the umbilical cord attached. Usually I leave that on and it will just fall off on its own after a few days. If it does get kind of snagged or pulls off, often you can get a little bit of blood, but it's usually not that big of a deal. I've also added a dish of water here. I don't think they're going to drink this young, but it's nice to have the water in there just to add a little bit of humidity. And I'm going to mist these paper towels, keep these guys nice and moist. And they're just on a simple heat mat set to maintain about 90 degrees. And actually they're trying to climb up the side, so I'm just going to grab them real quick here. I always like to try to pick out my favorites right after they're born. These guys, there's not a single one that jumps out at me, but they all have this really nice, bold, clean patterns. And the tails, tails especially, have this really nice kind of bold red pattern and color to them. It's kind of hard to see before they shed, but I imagine after they shed in about a week they're going to look really nice. I'll just keep them in this tub for about a week or so before moving them to individual tubs in my baby rack. I'll have to do an update video after these guys shed so you can see how they look. But real nice litter, real nice high quality Suriname Redtail babies. Hope you enjoyed the video and it was helpful. If you are planning on having a litter of true Redtail Boas, shoot me a question or shoot me a line if you have any questions or comments. And thanks for watching.